If you've ever imagined reaching that, that richer life milestone after 40, a life where you feel wealthy, not just in dollars, but in time, climate, community,
Hmm.
you might just assume you need to work harder, save more money. But, well, the recent case study we've been analyzing suggests the path isn't working harder.
It's moving smarter.
Exactly, moving strategically.
We're taking a deep dive into geo-arbitrage today. But this isn't the usual surface level stuff. We're grounding this whole approach in unshakable financial stability.
Right.
The goal of the team behind this study was to create a practical, real-world blueprint for, say, North American and UK investors who are ready to make that shift from accumulation to income.
And what I find so interesting about this case study is that they actively avoided the usual suspects.
Yeah, the places everyone talks about.
Right, like coastal Panama or certain parts of Thailand. Instead, they focused on three completely different destinations: Chile, Greece, and Malaysia.
And they chose them for a reason. Different climate profiles, solid infrastructure, and, really importantly, clear paths for sophisticated expats.
So our mission today is to synthesize their findings on how a robust, purpose-built passive income engine fueled by things like high-yield covered call ETFs actually makes that freedom possible.
It's a blueprint that delivers financial independence without the stress of volatile markets or, being tied to a demanding remote job. True freedom means a consistent paycheck from your portfolio no matter where you are.
Okay, so let's unpack that crucial concept: geo-arbitrage. At its core, it's pretty simple, right?
It is. It's just the practice of exploiting the difference in cost of living between two places.
You earn your money in a high-value currency, US, Canadian dollars.
Mm-hmm. And then you spend it in a place where housing, groceries, services, all that stuff is significantly cheaper.
And that income source part is the foundation of this whole study.
It's everything. While geo-arbitrage often starts with a high-paying remote job, the research team really emphasized moving away from work entirely.
Ah, so pure passive income.
Purely passive. They focused on strategies that consistently deliver, say, an 8 to 12% yield on the portfolio. That's the mechanism that buys you the flexibility to move.
Okay, and here's where the case study gets really, really useful because it tackles the biggest mistake most newcomers make.
A race to the bottom.
Exactly. The team argues pretty strongly that geo-arbitrage should not be a quest for the absolute cheapest country you can find on a map.
That's the long-term pitfall we see again and again. I mean, sure, you can find countries where your savings are over 60, maybe 70% compared to the U.S., but what you gain in daily costs,
You risk losing somewhere else.
you risk losing in crucial, non-negotiable factors. We're talking about poor infrastructure, unstable politics, maybe even bad banking access. Or, and this is a big one, inadequate health care. One catastrophic illness can wipe out 20 years of savings.
That's a powerful point. We look at the price of rent, but we forget about the hidden friction costs. And the team highlighted one factor that's so often undervalued, and it really resonated with me.
Accessibility.
Accessibility to a major international airport. This isn't just about comfort. It's basically a form of insurance.
It absolutely is. If you're a couple over 40, you've probably got aging parents, maybe grown children, networks back home. If an emergency happens, you can't be facing a 24-hour journey with 3 connections.
No way.
The case study authors, they're Canadian expats themselves, and they noted from their own experience that while places like Malaysia offered amazing cost savings, the sheer travel friction
And the time zones.
and the massive time zone difference,
Yeah.
that ultimately pushed them toward Latin America for convenience and just being closer to family.
So all of this focus on stability and access, it led the team to identify a kind of sweet spot for geo-arbitrage.
A sweet spot. They found it's a location that gives you savings of about 25 to 50% compared to the U.S.
Okay, so why that range specifically?
Well, if you save less than 25%, the move often isn't worth the hassle, the visa tax complexities. But if you save more than 50%,
That's the red flag.
that's the red flag. The study concludes anything beyond 50% usually means the country is too cheap to be true. Maybe due to instability or a serious lack of infrastructure. It's about optimizing value, not just maximizing cheapness.
That trade-off is so clear. You sacrifice the moonshot savings for a reliable, safe, and accessible location, which brings us perfectly to the 3 countries they chose.
Greece, Chile, and Malaysia.
And they were picked because they all hit those core non-financial criteria we mentioned.
Right. Political stability, solid infrastructure, decent health care, and critically clear and defined expat visa paths for someone who is financially independent.
So let's break down the costs. And remember, the team built a pretty big buffer into these numbers.
Yeah, this isn't bare bones budgeting. There's an extra $500 to $1,000 a month in there for incidentals, inflation, and those crucial emergency plane tickets home.
Okay, so starting with Greece.
Greece is the highest cost option in the study. For a couple, the estimated total monthly cost with rent is about $2,300.
Which is, what, about 21% cheaper than the U.S.?
Exactly. It's right on the edge of that 25% sweet spot threshold the team recommends.
Okay, moving over to the Americas, we have Chile. Much bigger savings there.
Oh yeah. The estimate there is around $2,030. That's a very attractive 43% cheaper than the U.S., puts it right in that ideal value window.
And finally, Malaysia.
Malaysia comes in the lowest. It hits the ceiling of that sweet spot at about $1,920 a month, so 50% cheaper than the U.S. baseline.
But that difference, what is it, $110 a month compared to Chile? It
Yeah.
seems tiny.
It does, until you factor in that travel friction we were just talking about.
Exactly. The money is just the price of admission. The real value is the lifestyle you get. So let's talk about those quality of life benefits, especially for an over 40 couple.
Okay, look at Chile first. A coastal city like Viña del Mar, you get this beautiful, mild Mediterranean-style weather, 15 to 25 degrees Celsius, beaches on one side, Andes Mountains for hiking on the other.
And what about healthcare? That's key.
Chile's private sector is incredibly efficient. The team noted short wait times, specialists available at a fraction of Canadian or U.S. prices, and it supports a really high national life expectancy, around 80 years.
Then there's Greece, the cultural behemoth.
The big draw there is the Mediterranean climate, right? 300-plus days of sun a year, plus the history, the culture, the social life. And while the public health care can be a bit variable, the big cities have world-class private facilities.
And they have that wellness culture, the thermal spas.
Deeply rooted. Then you cross over to Asia, to Malaysia. Kuala Lumpur is tropical and consistent. It's always between 25 and 32 degrees Celsius, perfect for year-round outdoor activities.
And the study gave Malaysia really high marks for its medical facilities.
Very high marks.
Mm.
Often English-speaking, and this is important, JCI accredited.
JCI accreditation, that's a huge deal. It stands for Joint Commission International. It basically means global standards of quality and safety in medical care. It's a massive factor for long-term expats.
And beyond health, Malaysia is one of the easiest places for a long stay because of its MM2H program, the Malaysia My Second Home Visa,
Which has built a community.
It's cultivated these vibrant, active expat networks, so you have a built-in community when you arrive, which is so important for your mental well-being when you move abroad.
It sounds like three incredible options, each delivering on that promise of a richer life. But what's really fascinating here is the team's central conclusion. The financial foundation is way more critical than the choice between, a Chilean beach and Greek history. A poorly managed portfolio can just wipe out every single saving you gain.
Consistency and predictability.
Oh.
Those are the ruling principles.
So let's talk brass tacks. To consistently generate the, 3,000 Canadian a month, which covers that 2,300 US for living plus the buffer. What kind of investment base did the team suggest?
They landed on about 360,000 Canadian dollars, or around 280,000 US. That calculation assumes you can safely draw a 10% average yield.
And this is a key point about sustainability they made.
It is. They recommend you plan to generate 10% more than you need. So if you need 10%, aim for 11. And you reinvest any unused money each month.
Why is that so important?
It's essential. It gives you a buffer for fees, it lets you dollar cost average in down years, and most importantly, it counters long-term inflation so your capital never loses its income-generating power.
Okay, so the primary tool they rely on for this steady high yield.
High-yield covered call exchange traded funds, or CCETF.
The workhorse.
They really are the workhorse for this kind of strategy. They prioritize predictable cash flow over aggressive growth. It's like a monthly paycheck without the hassle of being a landlord or the workload of consulting.
Okay, let's slow down for a second. For someone learning about this, what are the mechanics of a covered call ETF? How does it actually work?
So the fund first holds a basket of stocks, maybe tracking the S&P 500. Then at the same time, the fund managers sell call options on those stocks. They're covered because the fund already owns the stocks, which makes it much less risky than other option strategies.
I thought that house analogy they used was a perfect way to explain it.
It's a great analogy. Think of your stocks as a house you own outright. When you sell a covered call, You're basically collecting a steady rent check. That's the premium you get for selling the option,
And you get that cash flow monthly or quarterly.
reliably. The trade-off is that you've signed a contract to sell the house at a fixed, slightly higher price if the market suddenly skyrockets. So you get fantastic, consistent income, but you cap your potential upside.
That capped upside sounds a little scary, though. I mean, if you're looking at a 20 or 30-year retirement, isn't there a risk that you won't outpace some high inflation years? What did the case study say about protecting the principal?
That's a critical challenge, and it's why these funds are for income, not for accumulation. The case study emphasized two things: diversification and understanding the markets where these ETFs perform best.
Which are?
They excel in sideways or slightly declining markets because those option premiums keep flowing in regardless of that small volatility. In a huge bull run, you'll miss some growth, sure, but you're still collecting that high yield. And to protect the principal, you have to diversify across different ETFs, tracking different things.
So it's not a set it and forget it single asset.
Far from it. The goal is to maximize the yield while managing the volatility. The team recommends putting no more than 15% in any one fund, and usually targeting 5 to 10% positions across different sectors.
So for our listeners in Canada, where this strategy is super popular, some examples they mentioned were HDIV and HYLD from Hamilton, and maybe something sector-specific like bank from Evolve.
Exactly. And for U.S. market exposure, which is essential, they pointed to ETFs that use this strategy on major U.S. indices, like QQQI from NEOS covers the NASDAQ Q100 for tech exposure.
And SPYI covers the broader S&P 500.
Also from NEOS, yeah. That diversification is what ensures your income isn't wiped out if one single sector has a bad year.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, the main insight is crystal clear. Successful geo-arbitrage isn't just about cutting costs.
No, it's a strategic synthesis. It's about marrying robust income generation built on principles like capital preservation and steady yield with a very selective choice of destination.
The ultimate life improvement after 40 comes from maximizing those other factors, climate, community, healthcare, within that safe 25 to 50% savings window.
And making sure that the income engine underneath it all is untouchable. It has to be robust and provide that guaranteed monthly figure year after year.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? You might be dreaming of the beaches in Malaysia or the coastal towns of Chile, but the key takeaway is realizing that location flexibility is actually earned by financial rigidity.
That's it. The world only opens up when your paycheck is truly independent of your labor and global instability.
Your first deep dive, then, should be into the sustainability of your passive income engine.
Before you even start comparing the cost of specialists in Santiago versus Athens, get that foundation right, and then the world is yours.
That is powerful advice. If you found this discussion valuable and want more on financial independence, passive income, early retirement, all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe.
And remember, around the 20th of each month, we actually reveal our own income portfolio. We aim for a high but sustainable 12 to 15% yield without taking on overly risky moves.
Please post your comments or questions below about this case study. We'd love to hear your perspective on geo-arbitrage and, what trade-offs you would prioritize.
And finally, a necessary reminder. This material is strictly for informational and educational purposes. It does not constitute financial advice.
You absolutely must consult qualified financial, visa, or tax advisors before you make any decisions about investing or moving abroad.
Until next time, keep diving deep.